It's time for some knitting with Rycrafty. But first, before you ask, before you wonder, there's no fuzzy little co-host today, which is why I'm wearing a pug shirt. Conan is at the vet. He's having surgery on his eyelid. He had a little tumor lump thing on the inside of his eyelid, on his left eye actually. And so he was getting that chopped out today. Today is Monday. I dropped him off last night, which was Sunday. And I'm not going to get him back until tomorrow. And it's really weird to be in my house with no little dog. But I've washed the bedding because he always has to help. He always has to help me put all the sheets back on the bed. And I thought I would relieve him of that chore. And so I did it without his help today. It went much faster. And I've also washed the floor. I've been trying to keep myself busy, I guess. It's weird. It's really weird not having him here. But it means I've been able to cover the couch in all my works in progress. And we're going to go through them. So I've been knitting for a while. And I would say my style of knitting is, I like knitting things I need. I like knitting things I will wear. What I find though is I'll get to like 90% on a project and then leave it. And I don't know if it's because I'm just bored with it by then. I think sometimes it's that. Sometimes I don't want it to end, so I don't end it. But then I also am not working on it anymore because it's just sitting there. And sometimes I just, before 90%, I get bored or I forget or I move on to something new and shiny. So I've gathered, these are all the works of progress that I could think of in my home, and we will see what they are. This isn't even where I store my yarn. So let's go on a trip. Over there, it's my fireplace. Hi. I bought myself flowers today. So this is where I store my yarn and fabric. And I believe, so this is the section that's supposed to be the bar. As you can see, it is not a bar. This is where it was meant to be WIP storage, but now it's WIPs, it's overflow fabric, I'm not even sure what's in there. My cash box for craft fairs. So I'm going to pull some stuff out of here. I don't even know what all this is. This is terrible. This is some gorgeous Liberty of London fabric I bought when I was in London this summer. This is their regular cotton lawn. It's got these great tree design. I love trees and green things. It's not a brown background, but it's still not quite black. It's sort of a soft black or something. And then this is amazing. This is needle cord, so that really fine corduroy. And it's got suns and moons and camels, tile. Not sure what I'm going to do with this, but I'm going to practice a lot before I use it, because that stuff is gorgeous and expensive. I think these all have to be works in progress. If they were finished, they wouldn't be in here. And if it was just yarn, it wouldn't be in there. So that's that. And now you can see that the inside of this thing is a mirror. Hello. But yeah, so this is gorgeous old Mad Men era wall unit that I bought at an antique store, and I'm so happy with it. I love it so much. It holds so much yarn and so much fabric. And as I said, this area was meant to be the bar, which is why it's mirrored inside. Nothing else is mirrored, it's all just storage. It's so pretty. But I guess as we're here, we have some yarn art. And this is from a Toronto store that went out of business, or that closed last year, I think. And then over here, I bought these 3 prints. Forgotten the name of the woman, the business who does them. Bought these the first year I went to Rhinebeck. It's a little sheep vanquishing a dragon. That's all friends in a stash. It's a sheep and a bird sitting on an electrical line. And then the one I haven't put up yet that I bought in 2017. It's the Fellowship of the Ring. Although I am a little mad because there's only 8 sheeps. There's only 8 little sheep in this picture, and the Fellowship was 9. And I asked her about it. I think once I got home, I asked her over Instagram or something. And she said she just didn't like Boromir and how he betrayed the rest of the Fellowship, so she left him off. But that's not fair. The Fellowship is 9 people. Boromir, he did his best. And now I don't have Sean Bean as a sheep. And I'm very sad. These are some sweaters worth. That's Brooklyn Tweed. I think it's Loft. No, it's Shelter. And then that's a sweater, and that's a sweater. Those two together are a sweater. So that's just 4 sweaters sitting in my hallway. And they've been sitting there since I moved. One day they will be sweaters. And this isn't really a stash tour, but let's have a look. Well, again, see, with the mix of the yarn and the fabric, scraps. Sometime later we'll do a yarn tour. I haven't looked in any of the bags. I mean, I remember some of them. Some of them, I have no idea what's in there. I assumed they were WIPs because if it's a knitting bag with, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff in here. So I figure if it's a knitting bag with stuff in it, then it's a work in progress. Because if it was finished, it would be in my closet or in the knit basket or something. So let's find out what all we have. This was in the other unit, the teak one, not the one behind you, the big white one. I guess technically it's finished. It's, I think it's the beeswax hat. It's in this great sort of dark brown tweedy yarn, and the tweedy flecks are multicolors, but it's too small. I have a really big head, and I should have added, like it looks like it fits, but I can feel it. It's too small, and I can feel it wanting to just rise up like that. And so I think I need to make it either a little longer, which is the easier way, or rip it all out and add a repeat. I haven't decided, and I only have that much yarn left over, so who knows. Again, I guess it's not really a WIP, but something needs to be done with it. This, on this yarn, yeah, it's yarn. I bought it in Montana. It's really soft. I did a road trip through Montana. I think I showed you a big scarf a couple weeks ago that had the other yarn I bought on that road trip knit into it. I don't know, but it's really soft and lovely. So I love having my Ravelry up to date. I'll just say this for this episode. My Ravelry is up to date. If you search, you will find. You may have to go back a few years. I don't know when. I can't remember when I did that. So this I won't talk about very much. This is this Christmas Advent mitten project. I think I have one more mitten than when we last talked. So I'm up to 7. Well, 7.5. There's a half one in there. So 7.5 out of 24. And I have 11 months to finish, so I'm feeling okay about that one. That's the only thing I've really been knitting on recently. Let's find out what's in here. I do not know what is in here. This is a really great bag. It was a gift from a lovely friend. I think you can guess where she lives. Does it say Seattle on that side? Well, there's the public market, the coffee roasters, Seattle. What are you? Oh, this is not a work in progress. This is an X work in progress. I started knitting a worsted boxy, and I finished most of the boxy body when I realized I didn't want a boxy. And I pulled it all out. Here's skeins. I think this one I reskeined. This I obviously wound up to knit from, and this guy. So this is a really nice navy blue. It probably looks black because it's not the brightest in here. It's Malabrigo Rios in Paris Night, and I have many skeins. 4 or 5? It's hard to tell. I'm not sure. This one doesn't feel like a full skein. So that's exciting. Not a WIP. Not a work in progress. Okay. This bag. So I know I've talked about how I was in London this past summer, and so you might think that this is a recent project, seeing as it's in a Loop London bag, but this isn't from that trip. I went to London 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, and got this bag then. But this is not Loop London yarn. This is yarn. This is it Cascade? No, it's not Cascade. It's one of those local US only fiber something. The ones that made, people that made the yarn for the Olympic sweaters that one year, for the US Olympic sweaters. Again, this was once one project. It was sort of a cap sleeve tunic, but this is such a sheepy, warm, fuzzy yarn that a cap sleeve garment was stupid. So I even wore that. I remember wearing that to work one day. Yeah, I remember that. So I ripped that out. I remember doing a video on my other podcast of me unwinding all that yarn. It's amazing what comes back to you. It's like, you know how smell brings back memories? It's like yarn brings back memories. Right, so I undid all that, started another project, and then stopped because the pattern wasn't the best. The pattern wasn't written by an very experienced designer. And I was also worried I was running out of yarn, which may be, I mean, who knows whose fault that is. Could be mine, could be the designer's. And it's this like circular shrug thing. I guess I should show you the good side. I used the purple yarn as markers between the little wedges, because you do it in wedges. But then I obviously realized that I could count and stopped doing that here. And you're supposed to join this cabley thing in a loop, and then there's a backy piece, and then your arms go somewhere. This may get frogged, if only because it's going to take a long time to figure out where I am. And again, that fear of not having enough yarn. That is a reason that I very often look like it's not even attached to anything. Which means that I think this is all I have left for, well, it's attached to something. Oh, this is the needle. So it is attached. I'm not sure how much left I have to go on the cabley circly part. I think this piece is actually the back piece that you sort of sew into the center of the circle, and then somehow there's arms. So I only have this one skein left for the arms and whatever else I need of the cabley part. And I remember, like, it was a limited edition because it's I wish I could remember. Yeah, it's not in there. Wish I could remember the name of the yarn company, but I'll post it. Is it Columbia? I feel like it begins with C. But yeah, I mean, they just have the sheeps they have, and then the next year they might get yarn from different farmers, or wool from different farmers, make different yarn. So I remember looking for another skein of this in the Ravelry D-stash and on just stores, and I couldn't find any. So I think I put it away because I was scared and I didn't know what to do. Not scared, but just like Ah, do I finish this? Do I not? Do I keep knitting and then discover I don't have enough? So that got stuffed in the cupboard of shame. So that yarn has been one whole other thing. I bought that yarn in San Francisco at, what's the really nice yarn store across the bay? A Verb for Keeping Warm. I bought that there. I also bought, when I was showing you my sweater quantities that are just sitting out, that's where I bought that shelter as well. I was there on a work trip, and I went with an empty suitcase and came back with a full suitcase of yarn. This bag, I love this bag. I bought this bag in an airport. But yeah, I feel like this is me going through my works in progress and like memories of trips. This is leftover yarn from one of my favorite sweaters, but it has nothing to do with this project. What am I doing? Who put this away? So this one, just trying to see if there's a picture. This is a sweater called Pebble. I don't think I printed the picture. So bought this bag in an airport. Bought this yarn, again, when I was traveling. Yarn is the perfect souvenir. Bought this yarn in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Here we go, here's the top part. This is a sweater I do really want to wear, because I think it would be really helpful in like the cold weather, that type of weather that we had last week. And so yeah, you can see I've got the top half of a sweater with no sleeves, cardigan. Again, it's a very sheepy yarn. It's very, I mean, it's soft, but this sort of high neck part I lined in a cashmere blend yarn. Again from a Verb for Keeping Warm, but this one was a gift from the lovely Auntie Jo. I knit myself a hat out of this and used leftovers for the lining there. But yeah, this sweater has a nice, interesting little sort of coin cable going down the front on each side that I obviously have to do something else to once I've finished the body part to stop it curling. So then you have to do arms. Again, this one has interesting shaping. It's hard to tell because it's dark gray. But you can see there's sort of the straight stitches down the back, and then you can see where the increases are. I would love to finish this and wear this year? Let's say this year. This yarn was from a farm. It didn't even, Last Resort Farm. It's Shetland yarn. And what I loved about it, and why I bought this color, was it has the sheep's names in it. All the skeins I bought were from Iago, Lady Mac, and Sons. So I enjoyed that it was a Shakespeare-themed yarn. But yeah, I've got 3 more balls in here, plus half a sweater. That one, I'm not worried about running out of yarn. It's fingering weight, so it'll be lighter, but super warm, so fuzzy because it's Shetland. Oh, and here's the rest of the yarn I used for the lining of the neck. Okay, so far we've had 2 sweaters, 3 if you count sweater's worth that is no longer a project. It needs to have a new project chosen. What would you knit out of 5 skeins of Malabrigo Rios? I feel like that's a yarn a lot of people use. What have you knit out of that? Okay, so I think that's it from the cabinet over there. Now I'm onto the stuff from the cabinet or the shelves behind you that I decluttered in last week's video. Look at the sweater. A sweater that has gotten too big for its bag. I love this little bag. I love the colors. I love that it says I love handmade and all the little stitchy things. And then I thought this button was very appropriate. Books are my bag. Let's see if I printed the picture on this one. I don't always. Ah, kind of. So this is August Sky. Can't really see because my printer's only black and white, but it's an all-over mesh sweater. Here I was obviously doing some calculations because there was some weird stuff going on with the sizes. If you're wondering if I have gnomes and hammers in here, I don't. It stopped. That's my heater. This building is 90-something years old, and it has original cast iron heaters, and sometimes it just makes that noise. When I signed my lease, there was a whole separate piece of paper I had to sign acknowledging that I understood that the heaters would make weird noises, and I couldn't complain about it. This is why I don't turn the heater in the bedroom on, ever, no matter how cold it is. I don't get cold in here, because this heater, the one that bangs, I can't turn off. So, but imagine if that happened when you were sleeping. Anyway, sweaters. What is in this bag? Stitch markers I've been missing. A pair of scissors. I'm trying to remember now if I traveled with this at any time. Right, so this was, I think this is too small and I don't know if I have enough yarn. And that's just a theme for me with knitting sweaters, because I always think, is this needle not attached to anything? This needle is not attached to anything. Because I always think I can get sweaters out of less yarn than I need for a sweater. Because I think, oh, I'll be making a smallish size. It'll be fine. Close enough. So, I mean, this is a very stretchy, super stretchy stitch. But I think I ended the body of this because I was getting worried I wouldn't have enough yarn for sleeves. So, oh, that's why there's an extra needle. The ribbing's a different size needle. So I think I thought I would, I don't know why I cast off, but I decided to do the sleeves, and then if I had any extra yarn, I was going to put it back on the bottom of the sweater. But considering I only seem to have this, and still have a whole sleeve to go, I think it's going to be a cropped sweater. But I do have a swatch. And as you can see, the swatch is much more open than the actual sweater. So, A, I can pull out the swatch and use it. And B, that whole sweater is going to grow a whole bunch. I hope. It's only got one sleeve left. Like, that's a fair amount of ribbing. I could probably stop the ribbing there. It's only 3/4 length sleeves, which is fine. It's a mesh sweater. It's not a sweater for a hot day. Like, you'd have to wear a camisole underneath, but pretty good. But why do I always end up in this situation where I don't have enough yarn? Why do I do that to myself? But yeah, and this yarn I bought, I was visiting my parents. I don't think any of the yarn in any of these projects I actually bought in this city, although I haven't bought much yarn since being in this city because I was a grad student, and now I am recovering and paying back student loans from being a grad student. So I guess it makes sense that none of the yarn I have here was actually bought in Toronto. But yes, I was visiting my parents. I went to this great yarn festival that happens in Victoria in the summer. I think I missed it by a week this year. I was very sad. Festival's put on by a yarn store called Naughty by Nature, or I think it's put on by them, or they're a big sponsor of it. Vibrations in Victoria. And I do not have the tag in there. And I know the vendor, I'm pretty sure the vendor has since changed her business name since I bought this. It was Joma, Joma Yarns, which I think still exists, but under a different name now. I think I'm going to leave this one out, and it's going to be maybe the next thing I knit when I get bored of mittens, which is now. I haven't knit anything in a while. That's the reason, because I'm bored of the mittens and I've only knit 7.5. Oh, can't leave these out. Ah. this went in this bag. Gonna have all the wrong instructions in all the wrong bags. Yeah, I'll get that. So this, probably something Christmassy. It's Tangerine Designs bag. I love this size of bag for little sock things, but it is not a sock. It's a mitten. It's most of a mitten. It's so pretty. I knit this, guys. I knit this. Okay, so this mitten is knit from the leftovers of the leftover yarn of a scarf and hat you have already seen in the bundling up for the winter episode. So I originally bought this yarn at Rhinebeck in 2017, and this was the scarf. This was the reason I bought the yarn. And then I had leftover yarn. So I knit myself a nice warm hat, because a Fair Isle hat is so warm with that layer of floats, as well as everything else. And then I still had leftover yarn, so I started on a matching set of mittens, or coordinating, not matching. The mittens are by Isolde. They have this really cool cuff where you knit this Fair Isle and then you knit some ribbing, and then you flip the Fair Isle up and you have an extra warm snow barrier, wind barrier there. And this is the this is the first mitten. I only have a thumb left, and then I can start the second. So I'm like 48% done. And it's just been sitting. I haven't touched it since last winter. I don't know why. I really don't know why. Oh yeah, and so because I was working with leftovers, I didn't have enough of one color to do the body, but there were two greens that were very similar, and I thought, that's great. I will stripe them in the body of the mittens, and it will be subtle and cool. And it's turned out so subtle that you can't see it, or maybe the camera can, I don't know. I can barely see it when I look at it with my regular eyes. So I don't know. I probably should have just made one mitten one color, or one shade of green, and the other mitten the other shade of green, and that could have been it. I also have this bag. I know what's in this one. Oh boy. So for a while there, the Hexagon Hexipuff blanket was the big thing. And I decided I didn't want to do a Hexipuff blanket, but I wanted to do a sock yarn scrap blanket. This is before I started another sock yarn blanket I'm going to show you. But I still wanted in on the hexagon trend. So I knit some hexagons. I think the pattern is called Sixes. Yeah, Sixes. And these hexagons are flat, knit flat. There's no stuffing, it's just like knitting squares that you would then sew together. I have to sew this together if I want a blanket, and I have to knit so many more. These are not enough for a blanket. But I also find it's a really cool little keepsake to have, like a little chunk of every sock yarn I've ever used. That is a super long-term thing that I don't even really think about as a work in progress, and it's more just that thing that I do that will eventually one day get done 10 years from now. So this basket sits in the shelf unit behind you that you saw in last week's video, and here's what's in here. This was meant to be the basket that collected all my works in progress, so they weren't all over the house, all over the couch or whatever, but it filled up pretty fast, and I have a lot more works in progress, as you now know, than will fit in this basket. These are baby hats that are waiting to be sent to a baby. That's not a work in progress. That's a skein of yarn. It's a very pretty skein of yarn by Ancient Arts called West Coast Waterfall. Works in progress. So, I mentioned a second sock yarn blanket. 2016, I moved here and I decided I deserved a treat. I decided I deserved a lot of treats that year because it had been a hard year up until then, that fall. So I ordered myself the Opal Advent Calendar. It's a sock yarn calendar. You get 24 little balls of yarn and you get to open a little door every day before Christmas. And I decided I wanted to knit a blanket out of mine. But I wanted something to unify each square because the yarns were just crazy, which I loved, but I also wanted that sort of unifying feature. So I picked a half skein of yarn from my stash that was meant for a Fair Isle sock kit that I had bought, and I decided to use that whenever the color ran out in the squares. And there we are. So this is all 24 squares. I knit them all. Not every day as they came out, but pretty close. I think I finished the knitting part in the January after that Christmas. And it's so cozy. With these 24 squares, it's just sort of good little lap size. And it looks done, right? Not until you flip it around. Or it does until you flip it around. And then you see the ends. Although now that I look at it, I thought I had more ends to weave in. I've only got the ends on the top row left. This could be done. I could actually call this done. After just one TV program's worth of end weaving. The thing about this, though, is that, so that was 2016. 2017, I also ordered the Opal Advent Calendar. And it's still sitting there in the box on my shelf. And I think originally I wanted to make this blanket bigger and do a row, because it would be 24, do a row around this row with maybe a different contrasting color to differentiate the 2 years. But, I don't know, it's a cute little lap size. It's cozy. It probably wouldn't cover, actually it would cover all my legs if I stretched them out. But yeah, so this one is literally only ends weaving. Only ends away from being a finished object. I could use it. If Conan was here, he would be all over this. So now I think we are out of the knitting related projects and we're on to the rest in this bin. So this is a partially sewn t-shirt. It's a sort of Breton striped fabric. It's going to be a 3/4 sleeve / neck top, like Kate Middleton wears a lot. Because yes, I am a royal fashion fan. And, well, that's a shoulder. Oh no, so I've sewn the neckline down, and, oh no, that's a sewn shoulder seam. That is sewn. It looks like I only have to sew up the sides and stick the arms on, and we're good. And I don't know why it's so close to done, because it's the cutting out of it's the taping of the paper pattern and the cutting out of the pieces that takes so long. Sewing up a t-shirt is like bzz, bzz, bzz. I don't know why I stopped. This, I believe, is the Southport dress. It's in bright blue. Where did that come from? And I think this might just have to go. Like, it just has to go in the garbage can or the donation bin or something, because it's just a really wimpy, soft, see-through fabric. I don't know why I thought it was good for a dress. I thought a pop of color would be fun, and it called for bias binding for the armholes and the neckline, but the fabric is so wimpy that the bright pink I chose glows right through it. And it's messy. I didn't do a good job. And sometimes I find my crafting mojo will just get stuck on something, and I'll have these projects hanging over me, and that feeling makes me feel like I can't do other things, when really all I want to do is other things, but like this is holding me back. So I think that's just fabric. That can stay. But I think these dress bits, they can just go. There's even buttons. And I think that might help me get back to sewing if I feel like I don't have to deal with these things. So I don't have to deal with you. Go away. This I'm not tossing. This next thing. So this is the Closet Case Files Carolyn Pajamas. It's like a traditional two-piece pajama set with the pants and then the button-up like shirt or jacket with a notched collar and all that. And I chose to do mine with piping. And I've made the bottoms. Those are done. Those, I wear them. I've been wearing them for a couple years now. I think I made those before I left Calgary, so that is more than 2.5 years ago. But I love them. I love this flannel. So it's got sort of your traditional gray and white plaid underneath and then crazy florals on top. Because if you can't choose between plaid or floral for your jammies, do both. And then I've got this great satin piping that makes it feel really rich. There's piping on the cuffs of the bottoms. Maybe the pockets? No, not the pockets, just the bottoms. But there's way more piping around the edge of the jacket and the collar. And all these pieces are cut out and they're just sitting here waiting for me to sew them up. And I haven't. Because I'm crazy. I don't know why. Okay, so that's that bit. Now we're on to the big bins that were down below in the cabinet behind you, or the shelves behind you. This is my Downton Abbey quilt. That's my little test square. That's the backing of the quilt. It's all, is that upside down? No. It's all the castle, or the abbey, I guess. And I need to put this down here. Sorry. So I've got bits and bits and bits. But here is the actual quilt. So I had seen this Downton Abbey fabric in a fabric store in Calgary. I loved this one that I made the big squares out of. It's sort of a faux knit, like it looks, it's printed like it's a knit. And I really thought that was cool, and I liked all the other fabrics, and I love Downton Abbey. So I thought I'd sew myself a Downton Abbey quilt. And just to show you how long ago this was, it was before the last season of Downton Abbey came out. And I told myself that I would not watch that season of Downton Abbey until I had the quilt to curl up underneath while I watched it. How long ago was that? Years. I spent years having not watched the last season of one of my favorite shows because I wanted to finish this quilt before I did that. And this past winter, I think it was December, I think it was before Christmas, I gave in. I just watched the last season of Downton Abbey, and I loved it, and it was a good ending. And I guess I'm just going to have to rewatch once I'm done this quilt. Do a rewatch of Downton Abbey. Again, I don't know why I didn't. Like, the quilt top is sewn. The backing has been pieced together out of 2 different fabrics. It's mostly the Abbey fabric. Ah, my binding. The binding is that I'm making a mess. I made the binding out of that knit print fabric. I didn't have a large continuous piece of it, so there's going to be lots of joins in my binding. I've even started quilting this. I was quilting this on my own machine. Like I put the sandwich together, I safety pinned it all, it's half quilted, and I stopped. Why? It would be so cozy. Like, I'm gonna have, if I finish all these projects, I have this blanket, I have the Opal Advent blanket, I have the Hexagon blanket, Blanket City. Which is great because it gets cold, and Conan also likes blankets. Actually, the Downton Abbey movie is coming out this year, so maybe this is the year I finish the quilt, and I won't take the quilt to the movie theater, but it would be nice to know that it's done while I'm watching the Downton Abbey movie. So the last bin of works in progress contains two things that are related. This is a Halloween cross stitch. The cross stitch pattern is by Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery. This is done, but obviously it needs something done with it. My plan was to make it into a cushion cover, and then I could put it on a couch cushion or somewhere in October. It's been done for a couple Octobers now, and I have not yet made the cushion cover. I even have the fabric for it. I haven't made the cushion cover. Partly because I want it to fit the same cushion that will have this cross stitch on it at Christmas time. And the cross stitches are slightly different sizes, so I know I'm going to put border pieces around both of them. So the border pieces are going to need to be different sizes to fit the same cushion cover, and I wanted to figure all that out when I had both pieces done. But again, this has been half done for I don't know how many Christmases. I'm just not good at finishing things, I guess. I get distracted by the new and the shiny and the Netflix, the dog. Maybe this year, I think I've said that about every project, but maybe this year is the year. Is this year the year that all of these get finished? That'd be a crazy thought. Like, my yardage count on Ravelry would be amazing, because I would finish how many sweaters? 3? More? 4. The white, the gray, the mesh one? I think that's it. The white, the gray, the mesh one. Plus everything else in a quilt, in a cross stitch. I mean, that would be really cool. But I would also love to know what your work in progress pile looks like. Let me know in the comments how many works in progress you have. Do you think I have a lot? Do you think I have not enough? Do I do too many crafts? That is also a problem. One last thing that I just realized is sitting here. My very, very oldest work in progress. So when I was a little kid, my mom took up cross stitch. Oh, there we go. Or my mom had always done cross stitch, and at one point when I was a kid I noticed and I wanted to do it as well. And she got me set up, and I did this little cow cross stitch. There's like 5 colors, no shading. It's just one of those simple, it's the first prairie schooler pattern. And the date I put on here is 1996, so I was 12. I always thought I was younger, but it says 96, so I was 12. And then I did some carrots. And then I wanted something more challenging and more fun and with cute animals and more colors. So we found this Noah's Ark pattern. And I started it. And I remember, I mean, that was 96, so I was 12. I remember being 13 at one point and working on this. But as you can see, it was never completed. There is only, well, I guess there's kind of 2 monkeys. There's only 1.5 monkeys on this ark right now. The rabbit is missing his other rabbit, who I think is down below somewhere. Yeah, the rabbit is missing his rabbit. The elephants aren't there, the giraffes, the turtles, the frogs. They're all missing from this Noah's Ark. That is, so if I was 13, this work in progress is 21 years old. It can drink all over the world, it can drive, it can join the military, it can rent a car. Well, maybe it couldn't rent a car, but it's 21 years old. It's been folded up in this booklet for I don't know how long. How old is your oldest work in progress? Do you have any that can legally drink in the United States? Or who have been drinking in Canada for a number of years? I think that's a little crazy. I think I might have crossed the crazy craft lady line with a 21-year-old half-finished cross-stitch project. But yeah, that's it for this week. Next week, hopefully Conan will be back and he will show off whatever sort of Frankenstein little scar he has. Because not only am I a crazy craft lady, I'm a crazy dog lady. I've learned. And so yeah, have a great week. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and then you'll know when I've posted new videos, and it'll help other people find me as well. And have a great week. Bye.